Call to order. Bastrop EDC Board reserves the right to convene into executive session at any time during the meeting regarding any agenda item in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551, Government Code. Item number 2, do you have any public comments today? No public comments. We'll move to regular business and presentations. We'll start with item 3.1, approval of meeting minutes of the regular board meeting of August 21st, 2017.
The minutes are in your packet.
Make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
I second.
It's been approved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Moving on to item 3.2, acceptance of the Bastrop EDC's financial summary reports for periods ending July 31st, 2017 and August 31st, 2017, and that is going to be found on page 6 of your packet.
So we have 2 months here to approve, just so that everybody is aware. The July financials were not ready for the last meeting, and so they're included in this packet. September here is the last month of the budget year, and so we will be concluding the budget year at the end of the month, starting a new budget on October 1st. So looking at the financials from July, we have 1.8 million in revenues against 1.6 million in expenditures. Sales tax continues to track along. I can tell you that we are probably not going to make sales tax budget for the year at the end of September, but it will be relatively close. Looking at the expenditure charts as it breaks out, 39% for debt service, which we remind everybody every month that we did the defeasance earlier in the year. Personnel, supplies and material, maintenance and occupancy, 16, 1%, and 3%. Contractual services at 11%. Business incentives and marketing at 26%, and capital projects at 4% for the year. And looking at the expenditure chart year over year, with the defeasance, we're still tracking right along with where we would be without the defeasance in November. So, and this is the budget fund summary that we do at the beginning of the year and showing where we anticipate the year to end. We suspect that we will do a little bit better on September 30th than where we thought we were going to end the year. And then they include the total debt obligation for our debt outward looking. So looking, and then you have your financial statement in your board packet as well as the balance sheet. I went through the detail sheet earlier today, and there was nothing out of the ordinary for July. Looking at August, we're looking at $2,034,000 and some change in revenue, or right at 91% of our budget, which is where we sit on the year. Looking at 1.746 million in expenditures, or 72% of budget at the end of August. When you look at the sales tax collection chart, we're tracking right along kind of about a 2% increase is where we're going to end up the year. Year over year at about 2% behind budget. Debt service goes down to 38% here, personnel at 16, supplies and materials at 1, maintenance and occupancy at 3, contractual services at 12, business incentive and marketing went up to 27, and capital projects at 3%. And as you look at the expenditures, as we get closer to the year end, it looks like we're going to be right about where we were last year. So, and then this is the same chart as the month before. And then the total debt obligations. I went through this detail earlier today as well, and there was nothing unusual in the detail sheet, and so you have the financial statement and the balance sheet in your board packets.
Make a motion to accept July and August financials. Second.
Moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? On to item 3.3, presentation and training by the Mike Barnes Group. Apologize. 3.3, presentation and training by the Mike Barnes Group regarding the EDC strategic plan, primary job recruiting, and economic development in Texas. This is on page 35 of your packet.
So Mike Barnes with the Mike Barnes Group is here tonight, and Mike has been working with us since I got here 2.5 years ago. He did a strategic plan review for us the first year I was here. Last year he went through and kind of gave a recap of where we were at and where we were going as it related to that revised strategic plan. And so we've asked Mike to come in and give y'all an overview as a relatively new board that has not heard from him, kind of his take on our strategic plan and where we're at and what we're doing, talk about primary job recruiting, and do a little bit of background of economic development in Texas as it relates to primary jobs and what he sees going on in the market. Mike works with EDCs across the state of Texas, both as a consultant and then also as an interim and executive director for those folks. He's got some longtime clients in which he has served as their economic developer. Berkshire in Houston is the one that comes to mind, Hobbs, New Mexico, that he's worked with for 5-10 years. He can probably give you a better background on how long he's been there. But I will turn this over to Mike and hand him the clicker. And I did not think about this, but do you want a wireless mic?
It really, I probably don't need either one.
Yeah, we record these.
So I obviously need one or the other. Then see, I'm quick on my toes sometimes.
I'm probably okay. Can I pull that out of the, or is it?
It's easier just to
What's the clicker? Testing, 1, 2, is it working? No, it's probably not cutting. I'll put it back on.
There you go.
So, Sean, you're telling me that when I hit this arrow to the right, that something will happen on the screen?
It will.
Okay. Pardon my, I don't, with the remote, I can do it from here, so my back's not facing people. Is that better? Let me say, first of all, it's a pleasure to be back before you. I don't, do I say good afternoon or good evening at 5:15? I'll let you all make that call. I try to be as non-controversial as humanly possible. It is good to be back, as I think among other things that Sean said, I'm old. I think that's how it translated, and that I've been doing this a long time. And I think he said I do it in a lot of places, which, let me get over here, I don't look back to you, I don't trust my back to this one at all. I think that means I can't hold a day job. Is that what that means? I think so. But let's see what we can find. As he indicated, a couple, maybe 2.5 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be asked to come in and take a look at the strategic plan that you had done, I think, under previous staff. And it was asked, in essence, and this is Mike Barnes speak, to take it from maybe a 40,000-foot view down to street level and try to put a little meat on the bones and make it so that it's, practical and tactical, which is kind of my nomenclature for economic development. So let's kind of see where we are at this point. Sean mentioned primary jobs, and I'm probably preaching to the choir, but primary jobs are those kind of jobs that almost every economic development entity, every city, county, state, regional organization, country, whatever, seek, desire, and attempt to recruit. And basically that's a job that produces goods and services that bring money in from the outside. It causes that, I don't want to get too heavy down a rabbit trail, but it causes multiplier effects. That money spread around the community. And typically a primary job would have between 3 and 5, 3 and 7 in terms of its multiplier effect, which makes the economy churn that much better and churn that much faster, which is thus the benefit of primary jobs. One of the things that we found in your strategic plan was that was, a highly sought, as it should be, identified target. And we'll talk more about that as we go through here. I think in your packet you should have, I want to make sure that I'm not saying too far straight. You should have a number of the targets.
Yeah, in your Dropbox account, there was the strategic plan review that Mike did 2 years ago with all of the North American industry classification codes, system codes, and the breakdown for those so that you all can review that at your leisure and then also follow along with him as he goes through these.
We wanted to, thank you, Sean, we wanted to highlight, and I'm big on these NAICS codes. See, it's taken me a number of years, because he said I was old, right, to learn that they've transformed from SIC to NAICS. And so every chance that I get to show that I'm current and vogue, I use NAICS instead of SIC. But the codes that I found most pertinent to Bastrop, and as the strategic plan suggested and as we identified in that earlier work, was the 32-33 series, and then carry those out another 3 digits or so, and they're indicated there. And those are some of the most applicable targets for Bastrop in the life science, and that I liked because that included the medical instruments target. I think I'm big on primary jobs, obviously. Making things make sense, and if you're going to make things, you might as well make things that have contemporary application. And we'll show here in the upcoming slide, life sciences, bio, etc., is one of the fastest growth targets in the country. And we might as well think along those lines in terms of let's target those growth industries. Well, I need to be careful that I don't say we're targeting things that maybe the national scene targets that probably isn't going to grow in the future. Did I say that? I think I did. But I didn't mention anybody by name or any specific targeted industry by name. Secondly, in the 54-56 series of NAICS codes, it was highlighted in the strategy, that broad category of IT. Administrative support, data centers, digital media, and software service targets, support for life sciences above. And so that's why I wanted to highlight those two, because they kind of go hand in glove from where I'm standing, and I think you as a community in terms of your ability to attract. And let's see if we can maybe offer some others. You know, in the target manufacturing was highlighted, and it was highlighted in the 33 series. It supplements the earlier targets, connects nicely with the primary jobs for Bastrop. I mean, if we're making things, we make things that causes the economy to churn, that creates multipliers. In the strategic plan, they still look valid to me. Manufacturing makes sense if the primary employment conducive to the Austin region's growth patterns, and they provide diversity for the Bastrop economy specifically. One of the things, and Sean mentioned it, we've done a lot of work in what I call the oil patch in the Permian Basin on both sides of the state line, both in New Mexico and in Texas. And fortunately, we're still in both of those markets today on both sides of the state line. We're doing work in West Texas and we're doing work in southeastern New Mexico. And one of our charges, if I say it fast, I won't show you how old I am, maybe 10, 12 years ago, was to help Hobbs and Lee County diversify their economy. I remember when I first went there, we had our choice of dining, Applebee's or Chili's. And if you look at what's going on, I don't know if you've been to Hobbs, New Mexico in the last few years, you know, I'm not sure if the official word is the construction crane, but there's tons of new retail, there's tons of diversified, not just Permian Basin oil patch and oil services action, but all kinds of diversified things going on in that economy. I think that's a good model, not because you're in the Permian Basin, but because of diversification. I think in your next session, not tonight, but in a future meeting, they're going to discuss hospitality and retail. And I want this to be as interactive as possible. Those of you that have been subjected to me before know that I enjoy back and forth, and it's good to see you again. That excludes Sean and staff from engaging in that for sure. What are your opportunities? Human capital is what keeps the wheels turning at life sciences companies, both big and small, and it's vital to growth. As a part of this presentation, I actually did a fair amount of research. Scary thought, me doing research. But one of the best reports that I was able to identify was a JLL report, and it's current, it's from 2017. JLL is a well-known commercial industrial real estate group. They probably provide as good analytics as anybody in the marketplace from my perspective. I think that this report that has a lot of bearing on this community, and that's why we'll cite various snippets from that report. Looking specifically at life sciences, the past 5 years, the average employee salary has experienced a 19.2% growth. That ain't bad. And the total number of industry institutions has increased by 13.1%. What's an industry institution? Well, we got a couple of those here in Texas, probably more than two, but the two that would come to mind would be A&M and UT, in terms of having synergy with life sciences, with bio, etc. What is happening in the marketplace is that, just like in every other field, they're doing the town-gown partnering. Makes all the sense in the world. Let's get folks in at a very early opportunity. Let's partner with them. Let's train our workers. Although we're not training for, and I don't mean this disparaging at all, for auto mechanics, we're training for the life sciences. So that's why they're at that higher level institution. A widespread strategy, and this is what I wanted to pull this and bullet this for you. One of the widespread strategies that's being employed in the pharmaceutical sector of that has been the hiring of contract research organizations, CROs. Guess what that means? They don't want to spend $320 a foot for space. They don't need to be in the pharmaceutical meccas, if you will, of the United States to pay that kind of cost per square foot, or to pay those kinds of purchase prices for land and or buildings. What does that mean to you folks? That means opportunity. My suspicion is that your cost per square foot is considerably less than Boston, considerably less than New York. And we got some players out in Seattle that want to enter this game, and it's probably considerably less than Seattle. And you're a lob wedge. I'm not a golfer, but I peripherally know the terms. A lob wedge from one of the two major research institutions in the state, which provide the synergy. If I were wearing the EDC either as a policymaker or as a staff, I would be trying to find who are the CRO types and how do I get in front of them. That pause is intentional, okay? Companies opting to remain in top-tier clusters despite the increasingly high lab rents and R&D costs, revealing access to talent is the top priority for life science tenants. You know what? We could probably delete life sciences and insert anything else in that sentence. Talent is the top priority today in economic development. 20 years ago, when I was a very young man, I don't even know if Sean was born then, if I were giving a presentation on economic development, I would sound like, and I don't mean this at all disparaging because I have a broker's license, but I'd sound like a real estate broker. I would say the top keys to economic development are location, location, location. Today, I say, much consistent with that last bullet, it's education, 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 which translates into economic development speak, grow your workforce, grow your talent. It's the number one issue out there. I'm interested, it's kind of an aside, I'm interested in seeing how this, second headquarter national hunt's going to shake out, and I'm equally interested in seeing how the automotive joint venture is going to shake out. My suspicion is that talent is going to be the driving force for both of those. To continue, 9 of the top 10 clusters in the United States have single-digit direct vacancy rates. What does that mean? That means cost is a lot more when you have single-digit vacancy rates. In order to meet, or in an effort to meet high demand in tight clusters, investors across the country are converting office space to lab space. Makes sense. Got this stuff, it's not occupied, we build it for A. A's not running right now, Z's running, let's try to go get some Z. Makes all the sense in the world, it's basic economics. As the industry continues to grow, the number of jobs in commercial space, guess what? I'm going to grow with it. Remember those CROs we talked about on the last slide? I think this is an outstanding opportunity for you all. I think your location and proximity to, we'll probably talk about this later on, but I'll tease with it now. In proximity to the UT, proximity to what? The 12th largest city in the United States, proximity to an airport that's growing exponentially. Not a bad set of tools in your toolkit, ladies and gentlemen. I would say that you would be perceived as the envy of any number of economic development agencies, not only in Texas, but across the country, and that your city, under your leadership, of course, would be perceived as an enviable location for all kinds of activities, just because of the nuts and bolts that you have, by definition. The integration of data analytics into the life science industry reveals how these companies are beginning to act more like, guess what? High-tech companies, as well as the different types of employees they will seek out going forward. Sound like this region at all? Sound like it? When I was again, doing the research, I'm not very smart, but my mama said I was smart enough. That read your community to me. That's why I pulled that and wanted to insert this. And I think JLL does some of the best analytics in the country. I mean, this is, to me, that's solid. That ain't fake news, ladies and gentlemen. That's the real deal, okay? Any questions, comments? So far, you're pretty easy. Does that red light mean that you're getting ready to speak?
Yeah, I think
Obviously, I'll pick up on cues pretty quickly here.
I just wanted to ask, since you're talking about the proximity to UT, but also to A&M, and with the NIH selecting A&M as one of the 3 locations for the, I believe it was a big,
It's their Bio Life Science Innovation Center.
Yep.
right, where they were going to manufacture vaccines and things like that which was going to bring, tons of biomed into that area, and to be really the only viable place between the 2 universities.
There you go.
Do we have any updates on what's going on with that? It's been a couple of years since I've heard about that. Anything going on with that project?
I don't specifically know the updates. I mean, and I apologize for that. I too would read it as you read it. It presents itself as a phenomenal opportunity to your community. I was in, if I say it fast, nobody will know. Any of you from Pottawatomie County, Kansas? See, good, then I probably said it wrong, but you don't know. There's a little institution there known as Kansas State. Actually, it's in Pottawatomie, Kansas has part of Kansas State, and it also has some outlying regions. And we were doing some work for their Economic Development Board. And they took me out to a similar facility. I'll get around to the point. And it was phenomenal. I mean, this thing was going great guns, and all of a sudden, it was still under construction. And all of a sudden, you started seeing medical office buildings cluster over here, and little development projects over here in what would have been probably less than 3 years ago, tillable land, as they like to say in agrarian markets. But I think that, you're ideally located. Your point is very well made. You're ideally situated. I always say UT because my brother-in-law has a box there. I don't get entertained at A&M, although I have no animosity toward it. If somebody would invite me to the box to see sports, I'd go there equally as much.
I have a question
Great.
as well.
Yep.
Is Austin one of the top 10 clusters?
No.
Okay. And
Let me qualify that. In tech, yes, which is one of the reasons I inserted the high-tech synergy. In bio, no.
okay.
Could it be? Yes. Pardon my interruption, please.
And the other question is, in the Austin area, are there other cities vying for that same sector?
If they're smart, and I don't mean to be flippant, but the same sort of characteristics could potentially be available in those respective cities that would be available to you here. What I think gives you a much better advantage, and I'm not just saying this because you're paying me to say it today, I mean, I'm brutally candid, Sean will tell you that, is that your proximity to the airport and your convenience to the airport elevates your status considerably. You may have heard me chatting with the two fine ladies here. I have a son that's on the 10-year plan at Texas State, and I thought if I got out of here timely, I know he'll need groceries. They always do. He's a big boy, 6'8", so I know he eats a lot. So I thought when I finished here, I'd cut across and maybe go to Sam's or HEB and buy his commodities for the next upcoming weeks. Mama told me I had to do that, right? And you heard me ask, is 21, the sinkhole repaired? What does that have to do with what we're saying? It's a straight shot from the airport, ladies and gentlemen. And you might have heard me say, I think you said I could get on 35. Let me tell you where I don't want to be. Even at whatever time you let me out of here tonight, is the law enforcement here? And sure, I don't want to be on 35 at all. I live in the hill country off of 281, and I will drive 281 to Dallas weekly. It's just a lot safer. So to your point, I think other cities have the matrix. I think you have a little bit better tweak. And you obviously have better policymakers and a much better staff. Of course. See? We doing okay?
Yeah, let me give a quick update for the board. So the Dell Medical School opened, they're in their second class now of medical students there, and Austin has overlaid an innovation district over the top of the Dell Medical School and is going to have, is looking for partners there, public-private partnerships to do innovation in bio-life science. Probably initially you're going to see a lot more medical device coming out of that because it's faster, quicker, easier to bring to market than you're going to see pharmaceuticals coming out of that innovation space. The Merck announcement that was, 3-4 weeks ago, it is a milestone for Austin to be able to attract that type of facility into this marketplace. In our region, when you step back from the Dell Medical School, at Texas State and in San Marcos, they've got a wet lab incubator down there at Star Park. You go up to Georgetown, they've got a wet lab incubator up in Georgetown that community runs. Gene and I have toured the wet lab incubator at Austin Community College. It's at the Highland Mall campus recently. Wet lab incubators are few and far between in Central Texas. And of the public facilities, I think I've just named all 3 of them that are out there in the marketplace. Here in Bastrop, when you get down to the local level, the University of Texas and MD Anderson Cancer Centers with their Bastrop the Keeling Center out by Camp Swift, and then between Bastrop and Fisher State Park, they've got a Basic Life Science Research Center. Agilent Technologies has a fairly large presence here in the community, and then the Coghlan Group in the industrial park does clinical trial randomization kits for clinical trials. And so the best that we can calculate with the job numbers that we have about 750 to 800 folks, depending upon the time of year, that are involved in research and development in the bio-life sciences field. And we're not even getting off into any of the real other bio and life science, the medical devices, just research and development. There's 750 to 800 folks here at Bastrop. We also have some manufacturers and assemblers of equipment for that space, and there's a few other odds and end pieces. We really have an existing talented workforce. The challenge that we continue to have in this space that everybody has in the Austin market is how do we grow our workforce and our human capital and our talent to continue to be competitive. And we're 22 minutes to the Austin airport from my office, from the EDC office, is what we tell our clients when they come in. And you can be in Houston, you can be in San Antonio, you can be in Austin, in that smaller Texas triangle, and be able to navigate attract some pretty smart talent and be in some pretty good spots with the research and development that's ongoing in this space. And we've seen some success in this area, and we're going to have some more success in this area moving forward. It really is a function at this point of having available space for these types of companies and then having additional talent come online. If you're a millennial, what one of our large employers will tell us is a lot of their older folks, they're Gen X and older, will live and work here in Bastrop with their facility, but their millennials will take the reverse commute out of downtown Austin, and they have no trouble attracting them out here every day. And so providing more housing opportunities is one of the reasons the EDC is heavily involved in the housing front, is getting more talent and human capital here to be able to fit within that bio-life science cluster. One of the incubator executive directors in the Austin area will tell you, when you sit down and visit with him, that our R&D talent is some of the best in the region because of the MD Anderson facilities and the Agilent Technologies facility. So that's a little bit of background about what's going on here locally.
And you also have the amenities. You know, how many cities your size have a Hyatt? A Hyatt of that significance? How many cities your size have the retail opportunities that you have? And that's not in my wheel well tonight, I know. You'll have somebody next week coming, or next month, come and speak about that. But, and the downtown is a very attractive downtown. It's a very enjoyable setting. I mean, you really have a lot of assets, to me, that are both tangible and intangible to be competitive in those niches. What a segue. Does space exist in Bastrop to accommodate that bio-life sciences project? Are there buildings that could be converted to that type of usage? That tech model again, the Austin region is poised to benefit from this. We may not be in this region in the top 10 in the bio-life science cluster, but we're knocking the doors off of them on the tech side. And those two appear to be merging, as the data suggests. Are there sites that could be developed into bio-life science projects or sites? Are there developers willing to do spec space? That pause is intentional too. Spec space is tough, very tough. Yeah, I can give you a flippant answer to that. There are tons of developers that are willing to do spec space. How many lenders are willing to finance it? Anybody in here that's a lender that's, okay, but the point that I'm not so subtly making is that spec space is tough to do at times. The financial situations are tough. But for now, the developer, the $200 million, this is a quote that I wanted to pull out of there. Quote, but for now, the developer, the $200 million project, King Street Properties, doesn't know what tenants will occupy this future hive of drug discovery that is now just a hole in the ground. This is out of the May 20th edition of the Boston Globe. So otherwise, this developer just threw $200 million of his closest friends to dig a hole in the ground without a tenant. That's pretty aggressive tech space, or spec space, for tech in life sciences. Admittedly, Bastrop isn't Boston as it relates to bio-life sciences. But you've got considerably, here's where I think your strong suits. More competitive pricing, your land and real estate prices in terms of occupancy cost. Within the Austin region, you've got a major growth hub. I think the EDC should explore some spec space and extending infrastructure to sites for not only this, but other primary employers. I put a period on that with my comment as opposed to the question mark that's on the slide. Now I know you've got your park, and I know you've got some infrastructure there. I don't know if it's fully infrastructure. I know that's been a process, okay? I'm seeing affirmation. So there are opportunities is my point. You know, would it be feasible to explore a 20,000 square foot spec building with expansion capacity, the knockout wall? I mean, these are policy issues that those of you sitting at that side of the dais are going to have to look at. Is housing available? Sean mentioned housing earlier. That was one of the things that came, is housing available to accommodate expanding companies and their employees? If you brought a 500 employee, let's drop it down. If you brought a 250 employee operation in here, could they all find housing in Bastrop? Not today. If not, shouldn't the EDC consider developing and implementing a strategy to address housing? How does this impact the workforce? You know, that talent thing? That education, workforce, talent, etc. You know, I remember, Sean's already told you I'm old, but 30 years ago, if I were making a presentation like this, guess what 2 things would not be included in a presentation like this? Housing and retail. And I'm going to say retail and talk about overall quality of life. We didn't care about quality of life. We were looking about, as the sports world, so we're looking at buckets in the seats. You know, do we have the nitty-gritty ingredients to do, quote, industrial development? Notice the shift in terms? Today, it's a whole different world. These, what do you call them? Millennials? These folk are driving the train. Scary, but they are. That's why I'm taking groceries over to my kid in San Marcos here after this meeting. But I don't mean to try to be a stand-up comic. There are way too many of those guys in the world. But as policymakers, you need to be thinking about these kind of things. You need to be thinking about, your budget's coming. How do you allocate your resources? Where should we spend our money? How should we spend our money? What's our highest rate of return? What's short term, what's medium term, and what's long term? This is part of the eye test. But I wanted to just show you, and if is this printed out in your packet? So they can see it up close.
Yeah, this whole slideshow is in your Dropbox account.
Okay, thank you, because you'll see that if you look at these 50 industries that constitute the advanced industry sector, I think you're pretty well able to come after some of those. You've got, especially if you reach out and say, your distance between both A&M and UT, add that to the airport, add that to your surface transportation. There's a lot of opportunity here, which goes to you as policymakers. How do you allocate your resources? Where do you advise staff to spend its time? And what kinds of things should they be doing to generate you the highest return on your economic development dollar? What are the common themes? Well, obviously talent workforce, infrastructure. As much as I joked and said 20 years ago, we wouldn't talk about retail or housing. We want to make sure the spigots work. That's still pretty important. I've been in this business probably 35 years, and I've never had a prospect in any community, whether I've been the Sean in that community, or I've been a consultant in that community, or I've been a policymaker in that community, because I've worn all of those hats. I've never had a prospect ask me about the opera before they asked me, do the commodes flush? Pardon my vernacular. So infrastructure does indeed still matter in this day and time. Available buildings and sites. The one that keeps bumping up there is available technology. What do you look like? Are you looped? Are you fibered? Are you fast? Are you fast enough? Are you faster? Those kinds of questions never entered the equation as recently as 10 years ago. Now it's bumped up, and these aren't in specific order, but they're kind of prioritized. Access to universities, education overall. You've got a double whammy. Folks, you've got to not be only concerned about, higher education. What's your pre-K through 12 look like? Because a lot of folks don't need that. If I'm an employer and I'm bringing in a 50-employee operation, maybe 30 of my 50 employees don't need to have bachelor's degrees, but they have to have skill sets to obtain higher level training, either through a community college or through some training program. And guess what people are going to look at to make that assessment? They're going to look at what's your pre-K through 12 look like. The good news is that everybody is subject to the same scrutiny. The sad news is Texas is typically rated, this is not sad, Texas is typically rated in the top 3 for business climates almost in every grading grid matrix that comes out, regardless of who does it. CEO magazine, you name it. But guess where we're not in the top 3? Pre-K through 12. Can you imagine if we could be in the top 10 there and in the top 3 in the overall business climate? You think our economy's booming today. Think about it. There's no reason that Bastrop can't be. Quality of life. See, I think you score very well there. Your proximity to Austin for the bigger things and for the what I call the down-home things, you've got plenty. I mean, I'd be very comfortable. You have tons more amenities here than I have where I live. Of course, I, by design, live in the middle of nowhere. But I find your quality of life, specifically in the community, is outstanding. And I'm not just saying this, because I come through here all the time on routes to other clients, and I take advantage of your restaurants and your retail and so forth. But when you throw in the proximity to Austin, you've got the best of both worlds. That's why I tell people I live midway between 6th Street and the Riverwalk. How do you compare within? And this is kind of what you need to think about as policymakers, and I'm sure staff thinks about this in their day-to-day activities of economic development. Excuse me. How do you compare within Central Texas? To your point, are there other cities in Texas, in the Austin region? How do you compare? How do you compare within the state of Texas, United States, and there's this other factor, globally. The market's global. Regardless of what the national politicians do, it's still going to be global. We live in a global economy. You need to think like that. So what are you doing as an EDC to compete favorably? These are, these are just policy questions you gotta ask yourself. Because you've got all, my wife's a Cajun. She makes great gumbo. You've got all the ingredients for the gumbo. How do you tell your story? How do you make sure the roux's good? Excuse me, your target industries I think are quite viable. And I'm highlighting the outsourced components of that bio-life sciences. I think your overall cost factor and proximity to all those things that we've discussed, you've got a home run working there. We've mentioned again the proximity to Austin, UT, other colleges. See, I did acknowledge them, sir, but not by name. I'm sorry. Interstate highways, I can't say enough about the proximity to the airport. You're closer to the airport than anybody is on the north side. Don't let them tell you otherwise. And it's a straight shot. What do you say, Sean, 22 minutes from your office? It's unbelievable. It appears to me, I don't want to say it's too loudly, is it budget time? Because the raises will be on the table, but from where I stand, and frankly, we travel all across the state and nation, but your staff is engaged on all the right things in IMC and regional marketing efforts with state and regional allies. Don't want to say this too loudly in their presence, but the feedback that I get from around the state, from the economic development world, is you've got a great staff. They get it. I'm not just saying this. You haven't paid me yet, have you? Okay. And why do I mention that? Because there are many that don't. And I don't mean to sound melodramatic. I could tell you horror stories, we don't have that kind of time, about what I've seen economic development staff do in the state of Texas. And you just kind of wonder, why would they even undertake such activities? That's not the case here. One of the things that should allow you to sleep better tonight is knowing that your staff is well respected, and that they appear to be doing the things that they should be doing to market your community in a very effective fashion. Your sites appear to be improving. I'm one of those guys that if they're improving, let's add more. That's why I say more could be added. Never enough, you know. Additional available buildings, that'd be helpful. You got to have some more. You got to have some more options. People like options. Near term, maintain and expand your recruitment and marketing presence. Protect your budget. I could give you horror stories. I'm going to give you one, not too far away. Y'all probably read about it in the news media. Woke up one day and said, I don't think we need an economic development program. Let's just shelve it. I wonder how long it's going to take that community to bounce back, even if they hire a guru. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'll make this observation. I can make this because I'm the guy that lives more than 50 miles away from here, and I'm going home tonight. I have not seen politics in this business as bad as I've seen in the last 3 years. And sadly, politics too many times drives the train rather than sound economic development policy. So, said that. Develop housing strategy to grow your population, your workforce internally. See, I'm okay with your workforce. I know that he doesn't have any white hair. Sean doesn't have white hair. I know he worries about it, but see, I think your workforce, and I'm not trying to pull the rug out from underneath you, I promise you. But if you were to hire me to put together something for your workforce, I would be poaching from everybody that could commute. And when you look at those numbers that that concentric circle as it grows larger, you stack up pretty well because we poach Austin. And there's all kinds of phenomenal qualified folks there. Now, does that mean we don't need to enhance our local work? No, not by any means. See, I'd rather have you all leading that train than poaching the train. I did say develop sites and buildings. That's something that, an effective ED should do. Long term, I'm big on evaluation. Take a look at what you're doing. Hey, we're not right all the time. I ask some pretty basic questions. Are we getting more prospects? Are we closing more deals? How's our lead generation look like? Are we in the media fighting with one another? Guess what? If you are, stop. Guys like me read the newspapers. We do some site selection work. I've done $100 million projects as a site selector. I promise you, no offense, Sean, I'll know more if Bastrop's on my target list, I'll know more about Bastrop than you know when I come through your door. And one of the ways I do that is I read every newspaper, every blog, everything. And there's some that are crazy. You're going to have disagreements. You don't have to have bloodbaths. Well, that's not quite free, but it's semi-free advice. Collaborate with a region state. You're doing that to grow regional state economy. You're doing that kind of thing. Enhanced business retention expansion program. Identify a number of contacts with local employers and business. What you find out there is that there's some expansion opportunities, and you can uncover issues that sometimes aren't known, but they could very well be common to other businesses. And if you go on, let's say in a month you did 5 or 6 business retention calls, and you hear a recurring theme that we have issues with ABC, guess what? You got issues with ABC. That's the most cost-effective way to find out. Sean or his staff come back, report it to you as policymakers, and address it. Real simple. Do both internal and external needs of lead generation. You've got to enhance your presence in the marketplace, and you're doing that. You're doing that externally through the IMC events, other sorts of trade, what your sales calls, your trade shows, that kind of thing. I'm big, let me just segue right to that last one. I think I said this when I was here with you last time. This is still, now I've given you all this stuff about we're all high tech and it's all this, but let me tell you, it's still a relationship business. Now, if you've got relationships with site selectors and brokers that are running with, let's say, those projects that we identified in the earlier part of the presentation, it's going to be a lot easier for them to call Sean and his staff and or you as the chair if they know you. Part of what we've done for a number of communities, in fact, I've got 2 coming up here in the next quarter, is we bring nationally recognized site selector broker types into those communities for familiarization tours. You don't want to beat them up. They don't really need to know how many left-handed Presbyterians live in a census tract. They don't need to know that. But they need to have a good overview of what's your product? What's Bastrop like? And the way you do that is through a familiarization tour. Bring them in if you've got some, you could even poach. It's probably expensive to do Formula One poaching, but find an event. You could fudge, take them to a ball game, even if it's in Austin, and house them at the Hyatt. That'd be unbelievable. Unbelievable. We're doing a casino thing in one client. I'm doing a big-time football game with another, and we're having nationally recognized brokers, site selectors come in. And we'll do this much of business and that much of social. Because you can't beat them up. Just an idea, but it's a relationship. And Sean knows a lot of these people. I mean, when I'm out in the marketplace, I see him rubbing elbows with all the right people. So I'm not diminishing the work that he's doing. But I don't know if in your tenure here, if you've had folks on site. That's tough.
We have not. We're going to be doing some with the Imagine Possibilities Tour 2 coming up in a few weeks, and we have been negotiating with the Hyatt for, we were trying to do an event this year, but it'll probably be the first part of next year.
And I'm not beating up on, I'm just saying you've got an asset here that's unbelievable. Take advantage of it in terms of the Hyatt. Communities your size don't have that kind of an asset. And bring some folks in. Bring them in, do it around a sports event, some golf event. And you can start off small. Bring 5 in, 3 to 5. And it's not that damaging to your budget. You'll be surprised at the relationships that you'll build. If you screen your as I say, screen your marks. Make sure these are folks that are doing deals and are running again, and you don't want to waste time on, somebody that's not doing deals or doesn't have the capacity to do deals. You were getting ready to say something? That's all red light? No? Okay, I'm sorry. I've taken up a lot of your time. You've been extremely kind and generous with it. I'll be happy to answer any questions, address your comments. I think, again, I started off early on by saying I think you have an enviable location and you have an enviable economic development effort, and I'll finish with that. I will also say there are things you can do to make it even more competitive. And that's not a slam on anybody in this room. It's a suggestion. You're at this level. Let's get to that next level. Comments, questions?
What can an EDC do to improve the schools?
Ooh, do I love my mama or my wife the best? I do a little pro bono work. I shouldn't have ever said that in front of him.
Too late. I heard it.
But I don't do it in economic development circles. One of my pro bono efforts, I'm building you a clock, sir. I'll get you to the time, okay? One of the things that's near and dear to me is literacy. And so, and our local little public library in Blanco knows that. And so I will do these kinds of sessions with them pro bono. They don't have any money. And I'm a big fan of literacy. And particularly in that market, we've got a lot of problems with socioeconomic issues. Guess who didn't attend the last session that we hosted there, that the public library hosted? The brand new, fresh off the boat School superintendent. In my humble opinion, who do I think should have been there on the front row? Not to listen to me. I wouldn't want to subject too many folks beyond you guys to that. But the school. You know, are any of you on the school board? I mean, you know.
You're a little later, right?
You notice when I came, I didn't allow myself to get positioned strategically between the audience and the door. That comes with white hair. You got to get engaged with them. You've got to. Whether it's running candidates, whether it's getting strategically placed on committees. I mean, I know a little bit about your pre-K through 12. You could use a little ratcheting. All of ours in Texas, with about 3 exceptions, could. So I'm not casting stones at Bastrop ISD. The only way that I've seen, let me give you a great example. Hillsboro, y'all know Hillsboro? I first started doing work in Hillsboro. What's that? Oh yeah, exactly. The light's going off. Your brother, right?
Yeah, I was born there.
There you go. How was Hillsboro's pre-K through 12 about 8 years ago? Everybody went to Abbott or the parochial schools. Guess what? The people that you grew up with, some of whom you're related to, now it's coming back to me. Boy, I've got to figure out where I am, don't I? Yes, we have common friends, I hope. Guess what? That was a priority that school district imposed on themselves. Not because they woke up with that idea, mind you, but because the community, to your point, said, we're not going to have this. I mean, they were having terrible out-migration of students. The best, the brightest were leaving. And people said, we've got to stop this. And they did. And guess what? Back when they ranked them exemplary, they went from what was the substandard or non-performing. It was a non-performing school about 8 years ago. And got up to the point of exemplary. How? Involvement, demand. Hillsboro's a great example of turning that process around. Tell me, answer. Questions, comments anymore? But you've got to do it. I mean, I know it's heavy lifting. Because sometimes they love to be in their own silo. Or academics. You don't understand academic, this is an academic issue. Yeah, we do understand it, because it translates into jobs. We understand it very well as an economic development group. What else? Again, you've been kind with your time. I will honor that. I'll answer your questions, but if you're ready to move on, I'm cognizant of that, and I'll get out of your hair.
No other comments?
Thank you all again for your hospitality. I appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you.
Thank you, Mike.
Give you a clicker. Oh, I got to give you whatever I'm wearing too, don't I?
Don't steal the mayor's money.
Is that a capital offense? Do I give it back to American? Thank you all.
Okay, on to item 3.4, consideration, discussion, and possible action on the Bastrop EDC Board's acceptance of the updates to the strategic plan, objectives, and strategies,
Thank you.
including key performance indicators. This is found on page 36 of your packet.
So after the last presentation on this, the mayor and Sam sent in their comments, and we went back and went through them line by line and the board's comments and tried to incorporate these into objectives and strategies, and then KPIs that tie back to those objectives and strategies, and tying them to timelines that made sense. We really looked at it from things that were annual to 3 years out, because in about 3 years, we're going to need to go through either a full strategic plan rewrite, or we're going to need to go through parts and pieces of a strategic plan rewrite. Mike doesn't like it when I say this, but I'm in the camp of having annual reviews and building those parts and pieces as you need them and having a good annual work plan instead of a 5-year strategic plan. But
I think I'm gonna sit down and listen to this. Thank y'all, I appreciate it.
thank you, Mike. And so we went through here and, 1.1 on the objectives and strategy, or 1.0 is education workforce development. 1.1 is continue to strengthen the workforce readiness of Bastrop secondary education. That truly is what we're looking at, that pre-K through 12 primary and secondary education programs. Establish a higher education presence, that's what we're looking at for vocational, technical, community college, higher education opportunities. And then create a talent attraction and recruitment campaign. And then the page that follows this is the KPIs that roll back with that. And looking at 1.1, did we partner with BISD to collect data on post-secondary and postgraduate intentions? And we're going to do that annually. We're going to do that through our Youth Career Day and our surveying of students, those juniors and seniors, as well as we move into our 8th grade program and being able to, and middle school program, looking at what those kids are looking at for career choices. Did we partner with local businesses to improve school performance? And we included in that both mentorship, internships, and apprenticeships. And that's something in 2018 and 2019 that we're going to be working with the school district to get businesses engaged in mentoring students, looking at internships, looking at apprenticeships. In a conversation with the city engineer last week, his wife works at the Colorado River Collegiate Academy, and they have a student that wants to be an engineering student, and they came over and did an hour of job shadowing, and that's a program that would fit within this. Is there a way to take these graduates and students to have them go job shadow an engineer, go job shadow a lawyer for a day? Establish a higher education presence in Bastrop. This is really, the working group to really conceptualize what higher education moving forward for Bastrop looks like, something that we're going to do in 2018. Create a talent and attraction and recruitment campaign. Did we develop a labor study report? Did we conduct a formal labor market survey? Did we conduct a brief annual skills analysis of existing companies? Did we analyze skills, workforce gaps, and projects lost? All of those making us providing us more data and providing us more information about our current labor market. The labor market survey, the formal labor market survey, we're looking out at probably 2020 when we've kind of stabilized our housing starts and we can really survey what is coming into the market, stop gapping with that labor study report in 2018 and 2019 with the Chimera data and other sources that we have available to us. Moving on to 2.0.
Hang on, John.
Yep.
I want to better understand, when you're looking at the objectives and strategies, I don't understand why the KPIs aren't the objectives and strategies, and why that's not what is time bound. And just kind of hear me out. I don't disagree with the verbiage that's in it, but when your time frames annually, and the only other column, if you go to the next slide, is completed, it sort of feels like the next slide. That we're all looking at.
Click it.
Go to the next. Thank you.
This one. Sorry, I'm scrolling on my screen, getting to the right screen, and it's not moving up there. Sorry.
Clearly, I need to work on my communication. When it's time frame annually and it's completed, it looks like we're just doing a yes/no, which is not really what I was looking at. Is this the intermediate step? I totally understand we cannot do all of these things in the next 12 months. I am 1,000% behind that. But are you going to then go from these KPIs of goal 1, if it's annually or a 2018, that you'll then develop a work plan?
So the thought process is that annually in the spring, before we get into the budget cycle, and Angela and I have talked about this a lot. We're kind of in a funky time period here, but each January we need to come and report back on a calendar year of the the KPI success. Then moving forward from that, the board looking at the objectives and strategies needs to go, hey, you accomplished the 2018, the next KPI that's out there in 2019 or 2020 needs to be X, Y, and Z coming off that objectives and strategies, because we can't do all of them. And then some of the objectives and strategies aren't measurable as a KPI. Our ability in develop a CTE CE program that aligns with the HP5 career pathways. We can do all of the effort that we want to in that space and work with Bastrop ISD. We can work with our community college and workforce training partners, but you can't hold us accountable if those partners don't want to come to the table. What you can't hold us accountable for is if we're not trying. But how do you measure that as a KPI? And part of this came from Cam and his experience of let's put things that are measurable and making sure that we're checking off the measurable ones, with some of them being objectives and strategies that we have no control over, but we know that we want to champion them out in the public.
Okay, so you eventually have to tie it back to a work plan, because did we partner? Boy, that's really subjective. But did we have 5 planning meetings with the key? I agree, you can't make them do it, but I guess I'm looking for something in between. I don't want to hold you accountable for something you don't have control over, because that's not the goal, but there needs to be something between that and, yes, we partner next.
And that's part of the work plan that's in our annual budget as we continue to develop that, and what the funding that we're going to be using in each budget cycle, and here's the programs that we're going to be using in FY 2018, and what the results should be. And we'll be able to measure those work plan items in the budget.
Then the only other thing, okay, I'm still not convinced, and this wasn't really what I was looking for, but I'll hang in there. But my other question is, why does it have to be in January? If everything else is based on a fiscal year, why do you have to do it in January?
So like a lot of things in government, if we try to do this with our FY year, the issue that we run into is staff timing and availability to get it done. So if we try to report back in September as we're going through the budget process, we're running simultaneously budget preparations with measuring KPIs, with marketing planning for the next FY year. We end up stacked in being able to, if we run the KPIs on a calendar year and we're reporting back in January, it allows us as staff to spend the fall getting ready to go, did we accomplish everything, and what's that report look like for y'all in January, versus doing the budget and doing the work plan all simultaneously, and there's only so many hours and so much staff time in the day to stack that stuff all up in the middle of
No, I agree. I'm gonna interject, because I agree with you 100%, and I think the common ground, what I envisioned, this is exactly what we're looking for, but what I envisioned, and one of the main reasons I brought it to the attention or to the board and to staff was there was a perception of what is EDC doing? Okay, what are you guys doing? What does success look like? And I think those were my exact words that I used, was what does success look like for us? So I think what I envision, and it could be collectively we decide 2 things. It could be 3 things. It could be 1 thing. But let's put that measuring stick based off of all the work that staff has done and identify what those 2, 3, 4 things are. And it's a simple grid that says, that if continued strength and workforce readiness for Bastrop ISD, if that's a KPI that we all agree on, right, that we look at it on a monthly basis. And not to say that staff has to do anything for it every month and feel like you have to check a box, but the only way we're going to get really good or be successful in anything is if we hold ourselves accountable and know that every month that we all have to collectively do something. And it could be something as simple as you picking up the phone to a board member and say, I am struggling with getting a partnership with ISD. I need your help. Can you do this for me? That's kind of what we can do. And then we can put the KPI on there and say, here it is. And someone on this dais could sit there and say, well, I attended a meeting and we had a roadblock, but now we've turned that corner, right? Maybe at the end of the day, it comes out that maybe that was out of our scope or out of our reach, that we couldn't impact that. I think that's I think that's what Connie's looking for, I believe, is something that's just a little more granular that we could maybe identify. Again, not to your point. If we try to do all these on a monthly or bi-monthly, it's cumbersome. But I think we need to identify 3, 4, 5 things that we want to do really well.
I would recommend that you do document your touch points. And that does not mean that you're putting together quarterly reports that take a lot of time. But I really do think that it's is how you navigate the system and how you, what are your touch points, document them. And not only will it provide you the guidance to what you do next, but it's also a record of where you have been.
Yeah, and we already do that. That's part of what y'all get every single Friday as part of our update to the board.
But
all of those touch points are recorded.
I would put them in the form of how it connects back to these. That's what and that would be just a simple process. You could easily just document them as they are part of your KPIs.
To Catherine's point, your weekly update is a calendar. This is what has happened over the last week, but it would sure take on a different deal. You've got basically 5 goals here, and if you took that same report and said, we did these 3 things for education workforce, we did these 5 things for business climate, and then you've built your work plan, and you've seen where the effort's gone.
Yeah.
And you know that...
And all it is a different format of your
Exactly.
weekly report. And then you have that record. It's not a doubling of your work, it's just formatting it differently to credit it back to this.
Yeah, I think you're doing the work already. I think if I'm hearing everyone right, the consensus is tying the work you're doing to whatever the agreed upon KPIs are, just so that we all are on the same page and moving to those goals.
It seems to me like it could be as simple as for each bullet point you put on the report, you put 1.2 or 3.6 or whatever KPI that particular activity addressed.
And if you don't want to do to the subsection, because that becomes too cumbersome, you got 5 goals, you ought to be working on them. The stuff that you did ties back to them. And then to Cam's point, if it's all of our work has been mostly on, or we can't get anywhere on infrastructure, then that's one that we need to maybe relook at, or you need to pull in different help. But it'll be a way for you to know and us to know that your efforts are tied back to the top 5 goals. You are sure looking like you are not happy about this conversation.
But the other thing to remember here is that if you were to bullet this out on a weekly report and the same 3 sections have nothing for 3 weeks, then you go, oh my goodness, look where we're spending all of our time. And maybe you need to spend all of your time there. But maybe this is a aha moment for you. I mean, it's not more work, it's just a different format.
No, we're fine with formatting it the way that y'all are asking for. What we're trying to accomplish now is establishing what those objectives and strategies are and what the KPIs are that we're measuring. This was a board-initiated process that this is now the 5th or 6th meeting that y'all have provided input to, and we didn't come up with any of this. This was all board-generated material, and I'm trying to understand if the report that you want is us tying back the 5 items on the weekly report to be consolidated, and a monthly report to be consolidated, and a quarterly report, and an annual report. We can make all that happen, but where we're at right now is, are these the objectives and strategies and the measurables y'all want to see down the road? We can do all of that.
That being said, so our goal today is let's agree on the KPIs.
Yes.
What it looks like and how we attack those. That can be. We will push that until we agree on what the KPIs are. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, that's what we need as staff right now. We're
Okay.
jumping to the reporting on this, and I would look at it as an annual reporting deal so that y'all have it in advance to where we're making an annual report to the community of everything we did for a 12-month period. And if January is not the month the board wants to do it in, our thought process was let's don't stack it all on top of each other with other things so that we're able to give it the time that it's due. But it's also something that on the weekly report that y'all receive is breaking that weekly report into 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, so it corresponds when you read it back to the objective strategies and also back to the KPIs. And you're right, it allows y'all to track it to go, hey, they haven't done anything on the board report in business climate in 3 weeks. What the heck's going on? It allows y'all to ask questions.
And I want to
completely understand.
And I want to take a step back. It was or is not my intention when I brought this up for that. It was more of giving us a direction and to make sure that this board sticks to that direction. That's what that, it's very easy in our chairs of a couple of meetings a month, one formal meeting, for us to get sidetracked on one bullet point we may not agree with or understand, and then we lose focus and then wasting staff's time. That is not the goal. The goal is to keep us on task, that we are looking at these bullet points, these KPIs, and say, okay, this is where we're headed. Does this fit into 1.2? It sure does. Does it make sense? Does it make economic sense? Yes, it does. Let's move forward. That's kind of what what I wanted to do, or when I brought this up. So, let's go through these, I guess. They haven't changed other than over staff recommendations, correct?
We took the feedback from the board,
right?
and we consolidated them, streamlined them, made them make a little bit more sense. Nothing significant to them.
Okay, fair enough.
They seem pretty straightforward. I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page of how they were going to be used moving forward.
And that's still to be decided. And the suggestion that you had on tying it back to the weekly report and making sure that we categorize those versus just a straight up list, that's a great idea. And it makes a lot of sense.
You're making a smiley face now, so that makes me happy. I'm not trying to create work. Lord
Well,
knows y'all don't need to have.
this is
other
a
work.
project that has gone across 2 boards now.
I understand.
And so it started
It's all
under one
Cam's
board,
fault.
and now it's being completed under another. And everybody in the room, and probably myself and Cam and Kevin and Drew, have all of the background, but there's a lot of people here that don't have all of the background about how we got to this point. So,
And the beauty of this is that they'll all populate back, and your report will automatically be done at a click of a button, if you do it that way.
Correct.
But that's all I'll say.
yeah. So is everybody okay with the KPI, the objectives and strategies, and then the KPIs for education and workforce? Okay.
I'd actually like to improve on 1.1 a little bit after listening to Mike's presentation.
Okay.
To where it's not just collecting data with ISD, but to actually work with ISD to see if we can help them improve their programs. I don't know how that fits in, but just sounds like just the first one is just collecting data. And the other one's working with businesses. I don't see anything working with ISD to actually help them maybe improve their programs.
So we're already integrated with Bastrop ISD. Gene meets with them on a weekly basis in strategy for CTE, CE programs, for all of our programs with them. There's weeks that get missed, don't get me wrong. She's traveling, they're traveling, but they have a standing meeting that we're integrated within Bastrop ISD and understanding their programs and what our resources are and what their resources are and their programs are. So, that's perfectly, it's something that we can measure it, but it's something that we've been doing for probably well over, 6 months, 9 months since Jennifer came on board.
Well, realistically, for 2 years, we've had a working relationship with BISD.
Is there a goal that you have, Gene?
Say that again.
Is there a goal that you have?
Yes, it's, sorry.
Speak into the microphone.
It's to basically achieve everything that is a part of the entire workforce education aspect of it. To grow and develop the programs that BISD currently has into what we see our workforce needs being, whether that be technology, bio-life science, engineering, those types of things, and being able to kind of refine those programs from a BISD standpoint with the help of our industry that we currently have, as well as the industry that we think we can attract, and that way we've got that workforce coming out ready to go.
Yeah, and what that looks like for us is those CTE, CE programs. How can we better develop and coordinate those? HB5 is a House bill 3 sessions ago now that was passed by the state legislature that was pushed vocational technical training back into the schools. She works with them to get our HB5 career pathways integrated to our workforce in producing grads, whether it be the automotive tech program at Bastrop High School, or whether it is the construction trade program at Cedar Creek High School. We're back working on the culinary program again.
Culinary, hospitality, all of those, making the connections. Jennifer Edenfield, who is the new director of CTE for BISD, she is working very, very hard to make those community connections, and in part, I help her, since she's not from here, make those connections and make those relationships and build out the program that they've started, years ago, but making it more refined and more detailed, and physically bringing those industries into the school that fit within those pathways. That way the kids have that one-to-one, whether it be a mentorship or an opportunity to have an internship or do the job shadowing. She's been working with the county through my connection with Mel Hamner to have opportunities for road and bridge internships, and being able to get out there and work with the engineering guys to understand why they have to do what they do and the types of equipment that they have to use to make those things better for our community. So, and of course the technology team here, Chris White, who was just here earlier, started out as an unpaid intern and became a part-time, staff, and now is a full-time staff member here for, or I guess he's still part-time, isn't he? They made an actual paid position for him.
Anything with MD Anderson?
They do have an internship program at MD Anderson. The school district is now aware of that and is helping to drive students into that program. There are also...
The summer camp out there as well.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's a way, if it's something we're already doing, why isn't there a goal?
So in our original strategic plan done back in 2012, I believe it was, building a relationship with the school district was one of the objectives and strategies. We've done that, and so we're into program-based development of education, workforce development, not just building a relationship with the school district.
There is, it's an important point, and you are already doing it, and you really need to document that you're doing it so that others will see. So to me, an easy fix is where you say, did we partner with local businesses to improve? All you have to do is say, did we partner with the school district and local businesses to improve? You don't have to change anything on collect data, but I would weave it into that second one because you deserve credit for that. And people need to see that you're already doing that. And those are some of those touch points that you can be able to identify.
So on 1.1, we're going to change that. Did we partner with Bastrop ISD or school districts and local businesses? We've also
Or education institutions, make it broad.
And to Sam's point, I believe it was Sam at the last meeting, we've gone education institution, and grade level generic as much as possible to be able to incorporate this not only into Bastrop ISD, but also our private and homeschool kids, and not saying BISD, because that made it seem only that entity or only, and it's really, we're here for every kid in the community, and if we can make a program work for them, we will.
I agree. I would just weave it into that,
Okay.
partnering with educational institutions and local businesses, because you have to have the private-public partnerships.
Absolutely. We can't be successful without them.
I can only do so much with technology. Okay, any Any other changes on 1.1? Okay. That is easy enough to fix. Moving on to 2.0, which is business climate. Objectives and strategies continue to regularly schedule meetings with the Texas Governor's Office and the Greater Austin Chamber of Commerce to establish relationships that will help expedite regional and state involvement in Bastrop's projects when needed. 2.2 is adopt a formal economic development incentives policy. 2.3 is make Bastrop an attractive location for entrepreneurs to start and grow a new business, and many steps to doing all of that. And 2.4 is each board member will attend at least one outside event or education opportunity per year to sharpen business climate and economic development and knowledge. Any questions on the objectives and strategies for business climate? And so what we were looking at with the board's input whenever this was developed and key performance indicators, continue to regularly schedule meetings with the governor's office. I'll just read the actual touch points. Number of contact points, meetings, visit, call each year with the governor's office and the Austin Chamber, doing that on a regular basis. And did we track conferences, shows, and the results from those? That's 2.1 in the KPIs. 2.2 is adopt a formal economic development incentives policy. 2.3 is did we establish a resource guide for entrepreneurs? 2.4 is did each board member attend at least one outside event or workshop? Which, please, whenever y'all do that, if you do it outside of us, let us know. We're not mind readers. Any questions on 2? Y'all are being easy. 3.0 infrastructure. Be engaged in utilities, resources, and opportunities. This is one where we changed that to utilities. I don't remember what it was before. Angela, do you?
No.
I think it was a big long list, and it was all the list of utilities, if I remember.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's
They had
what it
it
was.
divided out, yeah.
And so we consolidated it into just the utilities terms instead of listing out all the different types. Ensure that Bastrop has commercial sites that are ready to market in terms of appearance and infrastructure. And 3.3 is continue to work with AT&T, Spectrum, and other broadband providers in Bastrop County to inventory broadband access and determine where services need to be expanded. I should not be in charge of the clicker. Key performance indicators on 3.1 was the EDC engaged in future utility discussions. Was there at least one discussion per quarter each year between the EDC staff and the city manager regarding utility supplies and opportunities? 3.2, did we maintain an inventory of shovel-ready sites available? Number of developments that provide new commercial space or shovel-ready sites? Did we establish a virtual building program? Does everybody know what a virtual building program is? Okay. 3.3, are we confident we know where broadband fiber will be expanded next? And did staff update the board each 6 months on progress of broadband projects? Questions on 3? 4.0, Bastrop is recognized as an appealing, charming, and authentic place to live and visit. 4.1, support Bastrop's Main Street and its efforts. 4.2, promote local business. 4.3 is focus on higher-end specialty retail and hospitality businesses to support tourism and enhance the overall quality of life for Bastrop residents. 4.4 is support transportation planning and development in and around the Bastrop area. 4.5 is support the newly formed destination marketing organization, Visit Bastrop. And so the KPIs and for this, on 4.1, did we partner with Main Street to bring customer service resources to existing businesses? 4.2, did we promote local businesses? How? Did we develop a downtown trail that connects downtown to the riverfront? 4.3 is which new specialty businesses did Bastrop add to serve tourists and/or residents? 4.4, did we positively impact transportation planning and how? And 4.5, did we support the visit, it should just be support visit
Okay.
Bastrop in its initial goals.
Got it.
Any questions on 4? Five is marketing. Bastrop strengthens its unique identity as a business, visitor, and talent destination with the Austin MSA. 5.1 is utilize internet-based marketing tools to tell the Bastrop story. 5.2 is continue to participate in regional and state economic development sales initiatives. Continue to strengthen media relations. And 5.4 is develop a target company marketing database. The goals for that, the KPIs for 5.1, did we produce a monthly article column in the newspaper to tell our story to locals? I can actually tell you that we sent one last week to the newspaper. So 9 months in, we've sent 2.
Better than that.
That's 2 more than we sent last year, by the way. Have we updated our print marketing materials such as maps, brochures, etc.? Have we streamlined our marketing messaging to distribute facts and interesting information? 5.2, did we participate in regional and state development sales initiatives? 5.3, how many media contacts did we meet with each year? 5.4 is, did we develop a list of companies to target for development? Did we use all databases listed above, including pulling and sorting tax ID, zip, drop from the comptroller's office, which we don't think actually exists anymore, but we do have some other databases that are a whole lot more accurate. Any questions on 5? So what we as staff need is to get to a point on these in which y'all are comfortable with them, and then the deliverable, it sounds like in the short term, is going to be, as we do our weekly reports to y'all, is to categorize them by the 1 through 5 and to start tracking them against the objectives and strategies and goals. And short of the 2 changes that we were going to make, the educational institutions adding it and striking the B, are there any other changes to this document? I would think that next spring that we come back to this and review it again and get an update on it and make any changes at that point. And we do this on a fairly regular basis, about every 6 months would be my recommendation. And let's have monthly reporting and then a consolidated report in 6 months as things change, and we may find other things we want to measure, or we may accomplish some stuff, be able to mark them off the list, and we want to put something else on the list. Because this is the kind of document that we're going to work from as staff going, are we accomplishing the objectives and strategies of this organization?
And that's why we're wanting you to, you're already creating a weekly document, so you might as well, everything you do should be tying back to these goals. Then you know you're not wasting your time. We know if we're not seeing a report on goal number 4 or whatever, to Kim and Sam's point, then we need to say, what can we do as board members to help with that? Or do we collectively say, you know what, 1 and 2 are way more important, and that's why we're not spending time on 4, and so we're not even going to keep track of that one anymore, and we're going to revise it. I think it has to be somewhat of a dynamic.
And it can go the other way. We can accomplish the goal, and we're not reporting it anime as, hey, we need to scratch that off, and we need to have something else on there.
Exactly.
And keep relevance to the organization and what we're doing. We've now got it. And so what we need from the board on this is we need y'all to actually accept this document into part of our ongoing strategic plan revisions as we do them, so that we can make it part of our everyday work world.
And I move that we accept the strategic plan as written with the 2 edits that were that Sean mentioned.
I second.
All is in favor? Any opposed? Sorry, I got sidetracked on my buttons here. 3.5, consideration and discussion and possible action on resolution R-2017-0012 of the Bastrop EDC to enter into a professional services agreement contract with Bowman Consulting for the downtown trail expansion project. This is on page 48 on your packet.
Yeah, this is the professional services agreement we brought to the board last month. We got it late, and the board asked that we bring it back this month, and then we managed to put it into your board packet on Friday without the work order and the schedule of payments.
I just thought you were just testing me.
No. This going digital is not as easy as it looks, folks. Managing the Dropbox account and getting the stuff in there is, yes, we're getting there. So this is the work order. What it entails is a standard professional services contract that Denton Navarro et al. Prepared for us. Dan Santee in that office worked on this. So task one is the construction plans, developing those for us. Step two, or task two, is TxDOT coordination and permitting. The western part of the trail is in TxDOT right away and has to go through TxDOT as it's basically a donation to TxDOT, and they have to accept the fact that we're going to donate this thing to them. And then task three is the bid documents and bidding support that is out there. And then task four is the owner's representation. In lieu of our staff doing the project management on this, we will actually have Bowman Consulting staff represent us with the contractor during the construction phase and review their work and approve their pay applications, which then we pay off of. And so that is the work order. And then on the item, the exhibit B is basically the various other charges that we can incur through this, whether it be copying services, delivery services, travel, miscellaneous, and then it goes through all of the hourly rates for all the different kinds of job classifications that Bowman has. And it is within the budget proposed for the downtown trail expansion.
Are you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I haven't seen the scope of services yet, but I can already tell based on just reading what I read up there that there's some language in there I don't want in there. So if you approve this, approve it subject to my review of the scope of services thing that has actual contract terms in it, which shouldn't be in there.
Okay.
There was a line at the bottom that says that if you agree to this, you agree to their standard terms and conditions. We're not doing that. At least
That is correct.
That's my recommendation, that you not do it anyway.
That did not come back in your comments, and that is correct. Or did it come back?
Well, I don't know, if we didn't see this. We haven't seen this particular document.
Yeah, it came over with their standard terms and conditions.
This
when
is
y'all kicked it back.
This is the scope of services.
Yes, it was attached to their terms and conditions that y'all kicked back.
We saw this? All right, then I need to talk to Dan, because you should have a professional services agreement that we gave you, and the only thing that should be attached to that is a scope of services. That's it. There should be no standard terms and agreements with them or anything. So have we seen a contract from them? Because there's a professional services agreement in here that we drafted for you, and Exhibit A is only supposed to be a scope of services. That's it. Nothing else.
Correct. When we kicked this over to y'all originally, it had their standard terms and conditions, and y'all said we can't agree to this. Your only changes was to pull off their terms and conditions. It wasn't conveyed to us.
All right, so then that
There was a
that particular line was missed to be scratched out then?
Yes.
Okay, all right. But we did get rid of all their standard terms and
Correct.
conditions? Okay.
Correct.
All right.
So do we know which lines need to be scratched?
Yeah, I'll do it. It's not a
Okay.
big deal.
Yeah, and
It seems like it's pretty much the whole paragraph below the hourly estimate of task, after task number 4,
Yeah.
which says signing this work order acknowledges you've received, read, and agreed to their Bowman's standard terms and conditions.
Correct.
So if that's it, we just need to strike that out.
We can do it.
Okay,
It's easy enough.
good, excellent.
It just got missed by everybody.
Yeah, that's all right.
It happens.
The big part was done, which is we took out all their terms and conditions.
Are there any comments?
I can't remember.
On the changes to work on page 52, is that sufficient to
I think it's page 51.
50? Well, that's 52, but that's okay. Section 4, changes to
I
work.
didn't have that other piece,
Okay.
which is why I didn't
Everybody
put it
there?
into the packet.
Just want to make sure that,
Dropbox account after the
I'd like to
fact.
understand how you get into that situation and how you document that you have just initiated a change to the contract.
I'll verify.
I've seen people get into this too many times where all of a sudden you get it, you say, well, you know, Sean, you called us and told us that you need this done, and that was another $20,000. How do you find out within this contract that maybe there's a notice that has to happen or something, that you're going into some sort of a change order process?
I thought that was defined in the standard services contract.
It is. It's defined in our standard professional services agreement.
It's not in this packet as we're following through that, but what I read last night, it was in there, and it said agreed and submitted in writing and agreed by both parties and all that kind of stuff.
Section 4 to the standard professional services agreement talks about changes to the project work and additional work. And
Right.
how does that work?
That's what I'm looking at, and I'm saying, how do you actually initiate that?
Oh, the staff would contact them and say, we need you to do additional work, and we would negotiate that.
And everybody's in agreement at that point in time that it's additional work
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. If it's not part of the original scope of services, it's going to be additional work
by default.
by default. Yes. Good question. Thank you.
Sam, the sentence that you like the most is any work undertaken by the professional not previously approved as additional work shall be at the risk of the professional.
Correct.
Then I guess I'll move that we approve resolution 2017-0012 with the caveat
That
that,
paragraph's striking out. Yeah, we'll-
yes. A second.
It's moved and seconded. Do we hear all in favor? Any opposed? Item 3.6. Open public hearing. Conduct a public hearing to receive input from the general public on the BEDC entering into an agreement with the City of Bastrop to fund certain services provided by the Bastrop Main Street Program. This is on page 65 of your packet.
So, just like we did with the administrative services contract with the City of Bastrop, we worked with Denton Navarro to prepare a services agreement between us, a written agreement between us and the Main Street Program, laying out our expectations for that. When we sent it back to Denton Navarro to have the resolution to approve it drafted, it was brought to our attention that it is actually a project of the EDC. The law does not allow for us to enter into a contract directly with the city without holding a public hearing. And so we are here having this public hearing. Did I explain that correctly, Charlie, in layman's terms?
Close enough for government.
Yeah, okay. Charlie and I did arm wrestle over this and he won. Hence why we're having the public hearing.
Simply proceed.
Are there any public comments? No, there's no action on this, so I will close the public hearing. On to item 3.7, consideration, discussion, and possible action to approve resolution R 2017-0017 of the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation approving an agreement for provision of Main Street program support between the City of Bastrop and the Bastrop Economic Development Corporation.
So this is the resolution to approve the agreement with the Main Street program. Sarah does know that from the date that we posted the public hearing notice, there is a 60-day window in there where the public can actually petition for a referendum on this agenda item. That we know of, there is nobody out there gathering signatures to have a referendum to put this on the ballot, but I do, for full disclosure, want everybody to know that that is the 60-day window that we're in. And so the earliest that we can actually fund the Main Street program, I believe we determined that was November 8th of 2017. And so this public hearing and then now this resolution will pass the agreement. It does have to go to City Council, I believe, for 2 readings of the City Council, which will go on their October meetings, the 2 meetings in October. It can't fund until November 8th, and yeah, with the retreat this week. So any questions on the agreement?
Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the resolution R-2017-0017.
Second.
I have a motion. It's been seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Now into executive session. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will meet in a closed executive session pursuant to the Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, to discuss the following. 1, Section 551-072, deliberation about the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property, 108 South Jackson Street, aka Project Sinkhole and/or Project Buzz. 2, Section 551-087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, Project Curious George, Project Buzz, Project Rainforest, and/or Project Be Well. 4.2. Nope. We're in executive session. The Bastrop EDC Board of Directors will reconvene into open session to discuss, consider, and/or take any action necessary related to the executive sessions noted herein. There is no action. We are adjourned.